On today's Olympic Hockey Daily, presented by Locked On NHL, we've got a recap of the first day of action in the women's tournament, including big wins with big losses for both Team Canada and Team USA. And we'll also have a deep dive into the goings on behind Team Russia with Russ Cohen, my co host on Locked On Flyers.
You're Locked On NHL, your daily podcast on the National Hockey League. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome to this Olympic edition of Locked On NHL. I'm Rachel Donner from Locked On Flyers. I'm on Twitter at @rmiriam. I'm here with Ann Kimmel of Locked On Predators. And where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter at AnnK_Mama on Ice.
How you doing after the first day of action?
Still need to adjust the sleep schedule. A little bit tired, but so excited that things have started. It was so great to see these games kicking off, seeing the teams that we've talked about, that we've looked at these rosters. It's great to finally see them hitting the ice for sure.
Absolutely. And of course, as is the grand tradition with women's hockey broadcasts, tend to get a little angry at how it goes in terms of the play-by-play and such. But we'll have plenty
Mm-hmm.
of time to talk about all of that over the next couple of weeks. Thanks for making Locked On NHL your first listen every day. We are free and available on all of your favorite podcasting platforms, and you can watch us over on YouTube. So, Anne, I think, we were so excited to get these games going, and we have to start out with some major injuries to talk
I
about,
know, not
which
how we
is
wanted to start.
not at all. And, just prior to the games kicking off, there was some interesting reporting from Alex Azzi from NBC
Mm-hmm.
about the different teams and what they were doing for taxi squads. And we knew that they were allowed to bring additional players, but we hadn't really heard much about, who had and who those players were.
Right.
And so Alex Azzi had noted that Canada had brought 4 taxi squad players for their women's team and that the US did not bring any.
Which today feels a little nerve-wracking.
Just a little bit. My understanding, based on comments made post game,
Mm-hmm.
our colleague Erica Ayala, who was on yesterday's show, you should go watch our conversation with her, who's over in Beijing, said that there is some way to get additional players in at this point, that the deadline for that has not passed, but we still need to get that confirmed and we'll figure out what the team plans to do. But for Team Canada, losing Melodie Daoust, she left the game in the second period of
Yes.
their first game. Just an awkward hit there, and that's going to be a tough loss for them.
That is going to be a tough loss for them. And to have it happen right out of the game, they were playing such a strong game. And in the second period,
Hmm.
first game of the tournament, it's a little bit of it's a little bit of a heartbreaker there for Team Canada, but they seem to carry on really well. And we're going to talk about the outcome of that game here in a minute. But Team USA also had a huge loss in their opening game. They won the game, let me be clear, won the game, and we'll get into that as well. But they lost. Brianna Decker went down on just a horrible looking tangle up fall. And, knew immediately it was a significant injury. She was taken off the ice on a stretcher. And Erica Ayala's route. So definitely an issue there.
Yeah, it's so disappointing that she's going to be out for the whole tournament. She's an assistant captain on the team, one of the leaders, one of their top scorers. And, it'll be interesting to see how the team adjusts. We can talk about that in a little bit in terms of what they did in that game that I think actually worked really well.
Yes.
But first off, let's talk about that Team Canada
Oof.
match against Switzerland, 12-1, the final score. Oh,
Wow.
it's tough. I mean, yeah, it started off kind of wonky, and the USA
Yes.
game ended kind of wonky, so I think good bookends there
Yes.
for sure. But there was about a 10-minute deliberation on the opening goal from Sarah Fillier, who had a tremendous game, 2
Yes.
goals, a really good start to the tournament for her. But it was very clear that it was a goal, but they took 10 minutes to figure it out. Um,
Yeah, it
did
was
not
weird.
stop them. Did not stop them. Obviously, scoring 12 in that game, and just a dominant performance, 70 shots on
Oh
goal.
gosh. Yeah, that was incredible. And it was, from start to finish, I think that 10-minute goal review was about the only pause besides the intermission as far as Team Canada went action wise. It was, start to finish, just a completely dominant performance. You really have to work hard to find some sort of weakness in the Canadian team after the game that they played against the Swiss. Do want to mention how amazing were the jerseys. Team Canada uniforms were amazing. Loved those.
Did you like them?
I loved them. They're like,
I do not. I like
really?
their other jerseys. The black ones, you can't read the numbers. And I had the same problem with the
Yeah.
Team USA jerseys, by the way, too.
Yeah.
My kingdom for jerseys that you can tell who they are.
I mean,
But
seriously.
I
From
mean,
a
they
purely
look good.
They look
Yeah.
good from a purely fashionable standpoint. I'm like, that's a great, great jersey. But I get function wise, maybe they're lacking something. But I love the look of the Team Canada black uniforms. I thought those were great.
Yeah, I think, I was trying to find some bright spots for Switzerland in that game and seeing if Canada had
Yeah.
any weaknesses. And, at least on the bright side for them, they were able to draw 7 penalties in that game. And
Yes.
I think that's something that other teams can take a look at if they have, a stronger power play,
Mm-hmm.
that it seems like Canada was willing to take those penalties. And maybe it was because of extra confidence that they knew they could kill them off.
Right.
But because, the one Swiss goal was a power play goal that was on a 5-on-3
Yes.
for them. So, I think that is a bright spot. They were also ahead by a wide margin in the faceoff circle. So maybe they can figure out how to capitalize on winning those faceoffs a little better. And, again, 12 goals scored, but that means that Andrea Branley saved 58
Oh
shots.
my goodness. That's, you look at the score 12-1 and you think, oh my gosh, must be really bad goaltending. That was a workout. I mean, that was
Hmm.
a lot of shots on net and a lot to handle. Um, so, a good, strong game for Canada. Definitely some things that they might want to try to clean up, but they look like a team that really wants a gold medal for sure. We had USA versus Finland. The USA won that game 5-2. Like Rachel mentioned, it ended in kind of a weird fashion on the broadcast. But the United States had 52 shots on goal to Finland's 12. And I really felt like Team USA had this well under control. And it didn't appear to be as close a game as maybe a 5-2 score would lead you to believe. What do you think, Rachel?
Yeah, I think so too, because the US just dominated with puck possession and
Mm-hmm.
had control. I think, if I were to compare the Team USA game to Team Canada's game in terms of
Mm-hmm.
style, I think Team USA was just a little bit sloppier, even though
Yeah.
they were strong on the puck and were able to, if they were doing a dump and chase, they were always the first one there. But I think that Team Canada just had stronger game play with crisper passes and a sort of more of a clear plan going into each sequence than Team USA
Yes.
did. And Team USA just lacked a little bit of the finish
Mm-hmm.
that Team Canada did. 52 shots on goal with 5 going in.
Yeah. Gonna want to
It's a
finish some of those.
yeah, and they had plenty of opportunities. Now, can you chalk it up to goaltending on the Finnish side versus Switzerland? Maybe.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that that would be the only way I could compare those two teams right now.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a good strong performance coming out of the gate. Definitely some things again Team USA wants to clean up, but for a first game against the Finnish team, I think they did pretty well. We also had China versus the Czech Republic. That game was won by Czech Republic 3-1. What did you think of that game, Rachel?
It was a really fun game,
Mhm.
actually. I got to see most of it. Czechia dominated in shots 36-14. It was interesting. China put their younger goaltender in net, Chen Tia,
Mhm.
and the Czech team just seemed to figure her out
Yeah.
real quick that 5-hole is the way to go.
Yep.
There were two of their goals were 5-hole, and so Denisa Kryshova scored the first one, and Michaela Peslova scored in the third, both 5-hole. The
Yeah.
one interesting thing about this game, from the broadcast side of things, is
Mhm.
that Team China designated Chinese language names for all of their players, whether they were raised in the US or elsewhere and brought over for their team. And
Mhm.
the broadcast decided to use their North American names. And I thought that was a little
Interesting.
disrespectful,
Yeah.
because also the names in the stats and the jerseys did not match what the play by play was saying. And it just got a little confusing, I think. So
Yeah.
I hope they switch that around.
Yeah, that would be much easier. And of course, we had another 3-1 game, Japan winning 3-1 over Sweden. Anything jump out at you about that game, Rachel?
So Japan's goaltender Nana Fujimoto is familiar to North American women's hockey fans because she was the netminder for the Riveters in the
Hmm.
NWHL. So she has a lot of fans over here. Made 26 saves on 27 shots. Japan outshot the Swedes 40-27, and Sweden has had a little bit of a roller coaster over the last several years with their women's program and lack of financial support and such. And Japan's program has been, I think, gaining some momentum over the
Hmm.
last couple of years, and I think that this game kind of showed a little bit of that on the ice.
Yeah, for sure. One of the teams that we haven't talked about yet, haven't played yet, is the Russia Olympic Committee team, but we are going to be talking about them coming up in our next segment. But first, want to let you know that our programming is brought to you from our friends at Bet Online. There may be less football being played, but betonline.net has way more odds and info for this playoff season, from scores, totals, player performance props to where the next fired coach is going to land. BetOnline is the number one spot for all things NFL betting in 2022. And it's not just football. BetOnline.net's basketball, hockey, of course, boxing, and UFC odds coverage is the best in the business. From sports right down to your favorite Vegas casino games, BetOnline is your number one online wagering destination. BetOnline, the fastest and easiest way to wager on all your favorite sports and play your favorite games. BetOnline, where the game starts.
Once again, thanks for making Locked On NHL your first listen every day. We are free and available on all of your favorite podcasting platforms. And we are so excited to do a little bit of a deep dive on Team Russia, both the women's and men's side of things, and just talk a little bit about how their team got put together and a little bit of a COVID situation. And honestly, I'm a little biased, but there isn't a better person to do that than my co host at Locked On Flyers, Russ Cohen. And we are going to bring him on and talk all things Team Russia. Hey, Russ, how you doing?
Good, good. Glad to be here.
So, first off, do you have any overall impressions on the first day of action for the women's tournament?
I do. I slept through the Canadian game because I knew it wasn't going to be a game. Like, I'll be honest, I did. I saw some
Yeah.
tweets and I was like, I've got to sleep. So I slept through that. I knew I would catch the U.S. game, and boy, I felt bad for Brianna Decker. Like, we heard the
Mhm.
scream.
Yes.
The scream really got me because I had a bad knee injury once, and I know what bad knee injuries could feel like, and
Mm.
it just So I felt horrible, and she's such a good person. I've interviewed her like 2 or 3 times, and they'll miss her speed and leadership and all that. But Abby Rock did do a pretty good job of filling in, and I know she's a first timer, Indigenous, which is cool. I think she has a chance to really step it up here on the big stage. But the problem with the U.S. team is, and they had said it on the call, they didn't have a taxi squad. So
Right.
now,
Yes.
Yeah, we
are
talked
they
about
going to
that.
try and rush in a player? Not Russian. We'll talk about them. But are they going to try and bring in a player and get that player past quarantine, or a couple players? I don't know.
Yeah, they
Yeah, it'll
have some
be
decisions to make on that, and they're going to have to make them awful quick.
they will, but I think Russia had some taxi squad players because they already knew they had COVID problems, right?
Yeah. So you remember I kind of told you on the sly that they probably flew out with problems with COVID, but just didn't report any. When they were asked, they said they had no issues. Then all of a sudden they had 6,
Oh, wow.
and 4 of them got reported by the coach. Somehow the coach forgot about the other 2. Uh, I was told 2 went to the hospital, but you can't get a good feeling what hospital, what is, so maybe they just went to a different doctor, who knows, but there were 6 in protocol. And so, yes, they had to bring in some other players right away. And call me jaded, but I have a feeling if the U.S. brings in a player, it's probably like this massive quarantine. But if Russia brings in a player, it's quick, because Team China has 23 Russians on the team. They're all from the Vanke Rays. They've all played for them at some point. So it's I don't know. Is there a conflict of interest there? I get they had to field a team. So there's that. There's actually been a positive on the men's team too, but I don't know if it's a player or a coach or whatever. So even on the men's side now, they have a slight issue. So there is that. The overall strategy of this team, what I was told at the beginning, was they wanted the girls to kind of hang low, quarantine, because they knew they were going to have some issues, and not do too much on social media and such. And they haven't really done that. Now, finally, the coach kind of came out today and spoke to the media, because none of the players have spoken to the media. They haven't had a practice, not one practice. Teams are playing, and Russia hasn't even had a practice. Now they're going to practice now, today, tomorrow, whatever day it is in Beijing. They're going to finally have a practice, but they're going to miss some. They've already missed practice time. They're probably going to miss a couple games because they don't feel like their team is that good. And so they're almost trying to keep their team out of the public eye, because even though they've been running the women's league for a long time, and I do know about it, I've done coverage on Sportsology. People can go see it. I tweeted about a little bit about it today with Alex Carpenter when she won the MVP of their league. I had some coverage up, but end of the day, they're not very confident, and it's almost like they're trying to stay away from embarrassment. But every time they try and hide something, something else is revealed, and you can't trust this Russian team. It's just the ROC. You just can't trust them, whatever you want to call them.
So I wanted to get a little more insight onto the roster construction itself, in terms of, is there anything else going on there behind the scenes? Because I know when we were in the beginning stages of the canceled World Juniors, we talked about the fact that they only took Russian players that played in Russia in their leagues, and they were kind of ignoring anybody who left. Was there anything else like that going on there?
I don't know if that was going on, but I did get word their best player, Sosina, if I'm pronouncing that right, I may not be. It's always a 50-50. Was in quarantine in Russia, and then somehow got to Beijing and is now in quarantine in Beijing. And so that's a magical little journey there, because I don't know how you could do that, but it's done. So they got their best player over. There's, like I said, there's some weird things going on there. We'll have to see how this team does, but as far as them doing a lot of press conferences and the players doing a lot of interviews, I wouldn't expect it.
Interesting. I wonder how that's going to work given that they have to be on the ice with other players from other teams.
Well, I think that's another reason they've sort of limited themselves because they probably know that there's an issue there. And like, because again, up until the point where I just heard that they're going to practice, you guys tell me, what have you heard about the team, the Russian women's team?
Not much at all.
Nothing, right? NBC hasn't said boo.
No.
That is true that the bulk of obviously it's going to be USA and Canada focused because those are the top two teams, but and then of course the next tier of teams with Finland and Switzerland and Czechia, but we have not heard much about Team Russia, even though they've had some success in international play in the past.
Right, and they do have a league, and they do promote that league a lot, especially in Russia. And so you think with nothing else, NBC would do a vignette on it or something to kind of let everybody know, because I'll just say allegedly they should be the next best team in there. Finland didn't look horrible today. All that aside, but they probably should be the next best team in there considering they have a league and they've had this league going for years. So I would think they would get a lot of coverage from NBC, but I haven't seen anything. I haven't heard anything. And I don't know how much better that's going to get. But at some point, they're going to have to play. But they would not be upset if they missed some prelim games because they feel like the fewer they play, the better. And they just kind of want to just skate into the playoffs if possible, the medal rounds.
So Russia is scheduled to take on Switzerland coming up. If that game does take place, how do you see that game kind of playing out?
I think Russia will beat them, but I can't say they're going to beat them handily. That might be a very tough game. Like I think we'll have to see because they're not practicing. We'll have to see because they've had COVID running through the team a little bit, what they look like. But I still think they probably have enough to win that game. But again, if they just eke it out, then we're going to know this is probably still, again, a two-team tournament. If they win it by a fair margin, then maybe there's some hope that, hey, they could actually get it together.
Yeah, it's definitely making me want to tune in a little bit more.
Yes.
Russ, thank you so much for joining us and giving us all the scoop here. I know you can find Russ at Locked On Flyers every day with me, but where else can people find you out there?
Sportsology.com, EP Ringside, full press coverage. There's a collectible site called GTS. Every Tuesday, I'm on SiriusXM at 12:15. Those are and Off the Post we run every Sunday, usually Sunday morning. Around 10 or 11, the link goes up on SoundCloud. So SoundCloud is under my name, Russ Cohen, or either Hockey Streams. We're like on Spotify and a few things like that. So I keep busy.
Yes, you do. All right. Thanks so much for joining us.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Russ.
Well, that'll do it for today's Olympic Hockey Daily. And we'll be back tomorrow where Erica Ayala will be back again. She's going to talk about opening ceremonies, and we're going to talk about the next set of games, preview Canada versus Finland, and so much more. Thanks for listening. You made us your first listen today. Now make your next listen Locked On Bets. It's your daily one-stop shop for all your gambling needs. Locked On Bets, hosted by your boy Q with expert analysis and insight from Lee Sterling.